Coming up on Tech News Today, the scariest part of the LivingSocial hack. Also, is Google now for iOS any good? And why SMS may be dying. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, April 29th, 2013. Happy birthday to my sister. Tech News Today is brought to you by Ring Central. We do everything in the cloud. That's why we love our cloud-based phone system by Ring Central. Zero startup cost, and Ring Central is $20 a month per user. Try it now with a 30-day risk-free trial. Buy one desk phone, get a second phone free up to 20 phones. Call 800-543-9980 or visit ringcentral.com and use our promo code TWIT. And by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website, blog, portfolio, or online store. Check out their new commerce solution so you can start selling stuff immediately. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT4. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used Samsung Galaxy, iPhone, and other smartphones are worth at Gazelle.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And I'm Chad Johnson.
Jason Howell still out on paternity leave. Sarah Lane caught in a plane delay. She's in the air as we speak, but we are still here to help you make some sense of the tech news. One of us will be able to even talk when we start the news feed.
A lot of pressure on me.
Google Now arrived on iOS today as an addition to the Google Search application. The predictive assistant is a bit scaled down from its Android version as it can't be integrated into the iOS itself, so no swiping up from the bottom on the home screen or lock screen or any of that stuff. But it still provides familiar cards that attempt to predict information you need based on your searches and your usage of other Google products.
Let's look into the apple-shaped crystal ball. KGI Securities analyst Ming-Chi Kuo issued a forecast on what to expect at Apple's WWDC. Kuo says we'll see new models of the MacBook Air and Pro. The Air is not expected to get a Retina display, and non-Retina MacBook Pros will continue to be sold by Apple. In other future Apple news, 9to5Mac says the upcoming Mac OS 10.9 will feature a revamped Finder that supports tabs and tags. Otherwise, expect more iOS-style functions, but no drastic interface changes. None of this is confirmed. This was all a dream.
You didn't see anything. Analysts at Informa estimate more messages were sent by apps like WhatsApp last year than by SMS. Third-party messaging apps carried 19 billion messages compared to 17.6 billion by SMS. SMS had more users, though, with a total of 3.5 billion users compared to 586.3 million users of the apps. Informa tracked some of the apps, though, not all of them. Informa estimates in 2014, SMS will rise to 21 billion messages, but apps will outpace it and rise to 50 billion messages.
For all of you who think Samsung doesn't make enough products, Samsung announced a new tablet. Say hello to the Galaxy Tab 3. The 7-inch tablet has a 1024 by 600 display and runs Android 4.1. A Wi-Fi only model will go on sale worldwide starting in May. A 3G model will hit in June. Samsung didn't announce pricing, though, but Ars Technica thinks it's going to be around $199.
Good guess, Ars Technica. Remember when the best way to use Google services was a toolbar? Did you forget Google owned Meebo? Well, you can safely forget both those things now. Google announced it's retiring the Meebo bar June 6th and removing those resources and devoting more of those resources to Google+. Google advises developers to remove Meebo code from their sites before June 6th.
Opera Software is suing former employee Trond Werner Hansen for giving away trade secrets to Mozilla. Opera wants over $3 million in damages. Hansen worked at Opera for around 8 years and is credited for pushing forward browser features like speed dial, integrated search, and something called tabbed browsing.
A Dutch citizen arrested in Spain, 35 kilometers north of Barcelona, on suspicion of conducting the attack against Spam House will be handed over to the Netherlands within 10 days. Police say the suspect, identified by the initials SK, operated from a van that he drove around in. He was questioned in the National Court of Madrid after his arrest last week.
SK also stood for Shredder and Krang, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. LG announced pricing for its 55-inch OLED TV with a curved screen that it showed off at CES. It'll cost you a whopping $13,550 and will be available only in South Korea. The televisions will start shipping next month. This would make LG the first company to ship a curved OLED television. Take that, Samsung.
Curves. Everything curved now. That's the new thing. LivingSocial announced over the weekend that its servers had been compromised and the names, emails, birth dates, and passwords of more than 50 million people had been compromised. Passwords were encrypted with SHA-1 and salted, but LivingSocial took the wise step of resetting passwords as a precaution anyway. The company also advises affected users not to use the same passwords at multiple sites, and if they used their LivingSocial password anywhere else, to change it at those other sites as well.
At a design presentation, Windows Phone Design Studio GM Albert Schum and the creative director at Wolf Olins, Todd Simmons, gave a look into Microsoft's branding. A video from 2 years ago shows how Microsoft looked to rebrand the Bing logo to one that looks more in line with Microsoft's Office logo. Simmons also mentioned that Bing, Skype, Yammer, Xbox, everything is under development as well. Flatten all the things.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Ring Central. When we built the studio at Twit, we wanted to do as much in the cloud as possible. We store our documents in the cloud. We hold meetings in the cloud, especially with some of us in different parts of the country. And we did not want to have to do the phone locally with one of those PBX systems in the basement. So when Russell, our IT guy, said, get a cloud-based phone system, try out Ring Central, was a no-brainer. Love Ring Central. Zero startup cost. None of that PBX hardware to install or maintain. And Ring Central allows us to easily customize all of our call handling. Our producers get their voicemail and their email, so it's easy to check voicemail. You can even get your fax messages on your smartphone. It's the best of all possible worlds in a business phone-based system. And now they have a new feature, Business SMS. You can send text messages to customers and colleagues, but you don't have to give them your personal number now. You can give them your business phone number and still send them a text message. It's a really cool thing that RingCentral offers, and you can try it out right now. All-inclusive pricing is as low as $20 a month per user, but don't pay anything. Start now with a 30-day risk-free trial. They have a special offer for our listeners. When you do buy phones, you buy one desk phone, you get a second phone free up to 20 phones. Here's how you take advantage of that. Call this number, 800-543-9980. That's 800-543-9980. I'll just say it again so you can remember it, 800-543-9980. Or you can also go to ringcentral.com and use promo code TWIT. That's ringcentral.com, promo code TWIT. And we thank RingCentral for their continuing support of Tech News Today. All right, joining us now to discuss the news of the day. Very happy to have the editor of Wired.co.uk, Nate Langston, aboard with us. Thank you for joining us, Nate.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here. I've noticed something, by the way. I think the last time I was on the show, Sarah Lane was not. I think I scared her off.
Yeah, okay. So she's flying back from Boston yesterday. They closed a runway at SFO because of fog, and she's like, just forget it. I'm going to have to fly in the morning. I swear it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, part of my job involves spotting trends, and I'm spotting them.
All right.
Well, I think 3 times is a pattern. I think this is only twice.
I was going to say, you only have 2 data points, so we'll book you again and see what happens.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us, man. It's good to have you back. Let's start off talking about that LivingSocial hack. It was, as Ken from Chicago asked, was it hashed? Yes, when I said it was encrypted using SHA-1, I meant to imply there that it was hashed with SHA-1. Now, a lot of people don't like SHA-1. It's not impossible to crack, which is why LivingSocial did the right thing by resetting the passwords, advising you to change passwords if you're reusing them. They also went a little farther. They actually said, we are going to change our hash algorithm to bcrypt, which is what a lot of people recommend. There's also scrypt or script and PBKDF2, but they're going to use bcrypt. So good on LivingSocial for adapting faster. The biggest problem, though, is this password reuse. Passwords need to be randomly generated by a password manager. They should be at least 11 characters. If you've ever listened to Security Now with Steve Gibson, you know all this stuff. Why are we still dealing, though, with these sites having their password banks stolen? Now, LivingSocial did not have your credit card numbers stolen. Those were on a separate server. And credit card numbers seem to be harder for the hackers to get at these days. Nate, any idea why it is that they don't seem to want to protect the rest of your information as well as they protect credit card information?
Well, I guess, I mean, there's a part that is how much do you actually need to protect? I mean, part of the problem we see here is that people keep using the same passwords for other sites as well. I mean, we've seen this time and time again. We always get these reports where it's like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, change me, let me in. And I think Ninja always turn out to be the most popular ones. But I don't really know why they don't spend the same amount of time protecting them, to answer your question a bit more directly. But yeah, I mean, they've done the right thing here, LivingSocial. They've changed everyone's passwords for them.
Yeah, they definitely reacted well. And I don't want to give them too much hell about it. I mean, using SHA-1 at one point was considered very responsible, and they just never went back and updated it. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that. And you're right. The responsibility is on us to also choose secure passwords. Do you think LivingSocial is an example of just a wider trend of people not keeping up with security, not pushing security to the forefront?
Well, I could think arguably something like LivingSocial is a very mainstream concept, right? It's a coupon-based thing, kind of like Groupon. And so people who are going to use it aren't necessarily maybe security conscious. They might just be thinking, hey, I want a really good deal on skydiving. I'm going to join LivingSocial and put in whatever I want quickly as a password. And I think one of the reasons why we're not seeing tremendous amount of security when it comes to all this data is because it's just a cost measure. Trying to get all this, making sure everything is encrypted or making sure you have to decrypt everything, I'm sure it's probably just a simple business reason, which is kind of lame because you want to think these companies are protecting your information as fiercely as you would. But the thing is, I got an email from LivingSocial, and I did not have an issue with my password. They said, you're okay, but we want to make sure that you are aware of that. I thought that was a really smart PR move because they need to control the message when it comes to LivingSocial just got hacked. What's supposed to happen there?
Yeah.
I think LivingSocial did a great job. You're right. Go ahead, Nate.
I think sometimes these just a bit controversial. I sometimes think these password breaches are kind of a good thing because if you imagine, I mean, we really need people to understand the importance of not using incredibly obvious passwords, not reusing the same passwords on other sites. But if you imagine some, campaign from people like Google or Facebook or whoever, putting this in the newspapers or in magazines, on the one side of the page, you're going to see the importance of password security. And on the other, you're going to see an advert or an offer or something that's far more attractive. You're going to ignore it. But when these breaches come along, when it's not from something like a bank or something where, really serious personal information, health records, whatever, are being leaked, it's a way that it gets in front of the public to really stand up and say, am I actually doing the right thing with my passwords? And nothing here has necessarily been breached that's going to cause the end of the world for anybody. And it's just another reminder that, change your passwords now before this happens or could happen to your bank or to your PayPal or any of these online currencies. So I don't know. I think sometimes it's not the end of the world that these smaller breaches happen.
Well, and you know what? You may have just hit on why we don't see the credit card numbers breached as often, because there were plenty of those kinds of breaches in the mid-2000s, and companies have started to take that more seriously because of the implications there. Nobody's going to buy anything from you if they don't trust your credit card information is going to be stored securely. I do think that what we're seeing is a continued evolution where people start to realize, okay, we need to have two-factor authentication. We need to encourage people to do more secure passwords. We need to encourage people to use password managers and make secure passwords that they don't use over and over at a bunch of different sites. But I really like what Google is doing with PayPal and the other people that we talked about last week in trying to come up with a better way to authenticate you without having to go jump through all these hoops. I mean, the password system is essentially broken at this point. And every time we see one of these hacks, it just further drives that point home. Let's talk a little more fun Google news, though. Google Now coming to iOS.
Yeah, Google introduced Google Now to iPhone and iPad this morning. Now, it's baked into the new search app. It's not like it's an individual application. When you're in the search app, you just swipe up and you have access to all those Google Now cards. Well, not all of them. You get 22 out of the 29 card types that are available on iOS. There's no airline boarding passes, local events, or Fandango movie tickets, but you'll see things like weather, and you'll see package updates, all those kinds of things there. Google says that the search app will support the iOS background location function, So it'll know where you are. So you don't have to constantly tell the application, where am I? What events are local? It can't use iOS's notification system to push high priority now alerts. You don't have any system-wide shortcuts because this is iOS. Nate, what do you make of this? Is Google just giving iOS way too much stuff? I mean, they seem to have very little at this point that makes Android stand out other than integration. Why give this away?
Well, they're kind of doing what Amazon does, really. Like Amazon doesn't try and make profit on the Kindles because Amazon just wants people to be using its services, buying its goods, things like that. So I think, in a way what Google is doing, it's not dissimilar to that. They just want to make sure that their services are being used across all the devices because they always want to be in the public eye. And, iOS obviously is a massive platform. It's not as popular as Google in terms of the total numbers of users using it, but it's really important for them to be on it. And I think if not Google, then someone else is going to come out and do this. So they're really getting in there. The slightly annoying thing is that I haven't had a chance to actually use this yet because I don't use Android. And the first time I opened Google Now on my iPad about 3.5 seconds ago, it crashed. So I'm kind of curious to see what it knows about me. There's a guy at work who just opens it every morning to see how much more Google Now knows about his day and his plans, which I find to be quite scary and also amazing.
Tom, some of these articles were talking about how some of these functions are missing. Between Android has a lot more functions for Google Now than does the iOS version. Do you think iOS users are even going to be aware of the stuff they're missing?
Well, no, probably, unless they also use Android. They won't be aware of it. And I think the fact that some of that stuff is missing answers your question to Nate about Google and its competitiveness. Because Nate's right. They give away Android for free. And the reason for that is they want more people using Google stuff. So it makes sense for them to put Google Search onto iOS because they want iOS users to use Google Search more and use Google Now. But there's a built-in thing that they don't have to hobble it. Apple doesn't let you make Google Now work the way it does on Android. You can't put it on the lock screen. You can't integrate it into the operating system, so you can just swipe up from the bottom on any screen that you're at. And I think that when people start to compare, they'll look at their friends who have the Galaxy phone or maybe the Nexus and say, oh, you can do that right from the bottom? It will look badly on iOS and won't look badly on Google. If they do realize it, if they do realize what they're missing, it's going to favor Android. But at the same time, they're not shooting themselves in the foot by totally keeping iOS users from having access to this stuff.
On my iOS devices, I use a ton of Google applications to basically replace some of the default iOS things. It's just that Google's doing a much better job, I think, at software than Apple is at this point. And some of these functions that Google Now can do, the reliability of their cloud service compared to Apple's iCloud or whatever the heck they're calling it nowadays, it used to be MobileMe, that doesn't seem to function as well as something like a Google service that's tied together. I know I've been using Android a lot more lately, and I realize how limited iOS is feeling more and more by the day. I'm just really curious if Apple and Google's relationship didn't sour as badly as it did, what kind of awesome functions we could have on both platforms. But Google, I just think they're just doing that standard thing of, hey, it's pretty good on iOS, and they can easily leap to Android now because these functions just work so much better on Android.
Yeah. Sometimes we have friends that we just wish had stayed together, like Google and Apple. It could have been so fun.
Yeah, if they're on their Facebook relationship page, it's complicated.
It really is.
There is another point to this, by the way, just to answer another question about why this is valuable to to Google to be on here, is that, with these sorts of applications, there's an awful lot of usage data that can be gathered. And the more usage data that Google has, the better its products can be. And that usage data is just as valuable on the iPhone as it is on Android. And basically, the more they have, the better. And I think that's another reason why Google wants to be on as many products and as many product categories as it can be.
Yeah, and it also makes sense when we saw those stories that Google Now is coming to the web, and it's going to be available. A lot of these things will be available through Chrome OS. The idea that they get all that data, they're still not going after the smaller markets. They're not on BlackBerry, and they're not on Windows Phone. So I'm just kind of curious when they will bother to go, you know what, we're going to be around everywhere once they're on the web.
Let's talk about another trend that we're seeing. We've been talking about this for a couple weeks now. We know that messaging apps are getting bigger than Twitter and Facebook in big parts of Asia and Southeast Asia. And Forma reported, as we mentioned in the news fuse, that more messages sent by IP-based chat than sent over SMS, although there are still more users on SMS. Even if you count in Facebook Messenger, which Informa didn't do, you're still talking about 1 billion users of IP-based chat versus 3.5 billion for SMS. But it's going the other way. And one thing in this article from The Verge, they mentioned an industry incentive called JOIN, Joyn, industry-wide effort to create a unified IP-based messaging. Because to me, I'm fine with the shift to this independent messaging system. I think the carriers are already shifting the text messaging revenue into other areas. Most of these that share everything plans have unlimited text messaging just assumed. So I think the carriers are okay with it. They're planning for this. But can we get an industry-wide standard? Can all of these different carriers and operating systems and everybody agree in a way that they couldn't with instant messaging on the desktop, Nate? Is that even possible?
Well, the ironic thing is that what you're describing is instant messaging apps that have been around for quite a lot of time. I mean, you've been able to use these on multiple platforms for a long, long time, and texting and apps and things like that, they haven't kept up in the same way that instant messaging did. But I mean, the numbers here are amazing, and I think that one thing I think we have to bear in mind is that a lot of these messages are being duplicated across lots of different platforms. So if you send me an iMessage, for example, and there are, I think, about 2 billion iMessages sent a day compared to about 20 billion on WhatsApp a day. That's coming through to my iPhone, to my Mac, to my iPad. I mean, does that count as 3 messages, or is that just 1?
That's a good question, and it sheds light on the complication of creating a standard, right? Which is how do we make all of these existing bases, Facebook Messenger, Apple iMessage, how do we convince them to interoperate? What's the incentive there? Ayaz, is there anything you could tell a big company like Facebook or Apple that would make them play in a shared universe like that?
I seriously doubt it. I can't think of I cannot think of an idea of why these companies would want to interoperate. They want to differentiate themselves on their services. BlackBerry Messenger was very popular because it was a free way of texting and sending out pictures and videos and all those other things that weren't available on other services. A lot of folks in the chat room are like, what about email? Isn't that effectively the same thing? I've been arguing that for the longest time because I don't even know how email would work now if you created it now, because it can go from any domain to any domain, no problems. But if you want to do a BlackBerry message to an iOS message, forget it. You have to go to SMS, and maybe that'll work. I think the entire reason why SMS took off at all was that this was this little bit of data that was always being sent by the actual cell towers, finding a profit center in something that has to be on all the time. That's what the wireless carriers did. They found money where there shouldn't be, and that's why that took off so well and was standardized, because they could all make money together. But to have Nokia and Samsung, and then they would work with Verizon and Vodafone, and everybody would have the same thing again, the same kind of messaging service, I don't have any idea how you would make that happen.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, there is such a huge amount of money in text messaging. I mean, like if you look at the actual data, I mean, there's about 120 bytes of data in a text message, which I saw a report today that says if you price that up compared to 650 megabytes on a CD, the equivalent price of that CD for that amount of data would be about £60,000 or about $100,000. Like it's huge money, and a lot of these companies have offset the declines they're making, which is now measured in like billions a year, by offering things like high-speed internet and things like that. And I think that, Tom, you said that they're quite comfortable in this loss because they are offsetting it. But I don't think we'll ever see a unified standard because Apple wants it to be across all devices, and WhatsApp wants it to be across all different types of carrier and devices. And those two sort of ideologies, if you like, they just don't work. Apple's never going to want iMessages on Android, for example.
I'm only upset because I think you're probably right. And we've seen, and like you said, we've seen this play out with instant messaging before, and they could not agree. There were standards created, but you couldn't get everybody to play in that same ballpark. Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor for today's show, Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website, blog, portfolio, and now an online store. You want to get into some e-commerce? Check out squarespace.com. You're not only going to get that social media integration, the reliability, the 24/7 customer support, the award-winning designs that you can take advantage of, but you're also going to get a powerful and flexible e-commerce solution integrated to work with every Squarespace template, allowing sales for both physical and digital goods, one or the other or both. Fast merchant account setup so you can accept payments right away by credit or debit card. One interface for order management, tracking orders, providing customer email updates, printing shipping labels, and adding coupons. And here's what it costs to get going. Squarespace Commerce, all of this stuff, the templates, the reliability, the support, the free domain name if you pay it a year at once. Squarespace Commerce is $24 a month. when you sign up for a year. Now, if you want to go monthly, it is $30 a month for the monthly plan, so it's not that expensive. It's not expensive at all. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform integrating all your website needs: domains, design, development, commerce, hosting, and 24/7 customer support. You don't have to pay a dime to try it out, though. Go to squarespace.com right now. Sign up for a free account. All they ask for is an email. They don't ask for your credit card or anything. Nothing to cancel. Just try it out. If you like it, after you've started building a test website or importing a website, use the offer code TNT4 and get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. That includes monthly and annual plans. And don't forget about that free domain registration with annual plan subscriptions. That's squarespace.com. Use the offer code TNT4. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. We thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. All right. Nilay Patel asks a very pertinent question given recent patent court events. Why did Google buy Motorola?
Yeah, the piece on The Verge's title, Does Anyone Know Why Google Bought Motorola? It takes a look at that deal. Google bought Motorola for $12.5 billion, largely for their patents. And recently, a court decision sided with Microsoft. Motorola wanted $4 billion in royalties for some standards essential patents. And the court said, no, you're going to get $1.7 million annually because it's just not worth that much. Google's been pushing through Motorola's 18-month pipeline of products, so we haven't seen anything amazing out of Motorola yet. And according to The Verge's sources, the Motorola deal might have pushed Andy Rubin out of his position as the head of Android because Andy Rubin was really behind this acquisition. Motorola CEO Dennis Woodside looked into Motorola, and he just couldn't see what Rubin was seeing there. And Eric Schmidt has promised phenomenal devices that are phones plus. And over on Twitter, we might have seen some of the stuff that's coming up from Motorola. A Twitter user by the name of EvLeaks, he says he knows what's coming up from Motorola. And All Things D says that EvLeaks has been accurate in predicting past moves. So we're seeing some new audio accessories. They look to be Bluetooth earbuds and speakers and headsets. The devices are mostly silver and black. The line is called Sonic. It's got the Motorola wings on it. Nate, what do you make of this deal so far? Is it too early to say what the heck did they do?
I think it probably is. I mean, I think there's an issue in terms of talking about patents, that the value that Motorola had placed on its patents was perhaps higher than what Google paid, and so some value may have been lost there. But I think neither company has been particularly transparent about the reasons for this acquisition. There's certainly a lot to be said about acquiring talent, but it certainly wasn't about acquiring product pipelines. I remember reading that Google, I think, saw 18 months of Motorola's future product pipelines and basically had to get rid of it all and say, no, that's not going to work. We're going to have to start again. So it's very difficult at this point to know exactly what's happening on the inside. So I don't know. I think I can say much more than that, I suppose.
Tom, what do you make of the Sonic line? If these are accurate, we were going to see some silver and black headsets, is that going to be the awesome future of Motorola?
I think you should do a licensing deal with Sega. And they can just put a little hedgehog up there. This isn't going to save Motorola, is it? I mean, granted, these are just leaks, and maybe when they come out with a product line, it will be a lot more impressive because we'll see everything it can do. These look interesting, but it's not the thing that's going to save Motorola. I'm not sure I buy this idea that Andy Rubin moved out of Android because of the Motorola acquisition. That just doesn't strike me right somehow, and I don't know anything about it, but it does strike me right that Google is changing its attitude towards Motorola, and we're seeing that. We're seeing Eric Schmidt talk about products and tout them, and that was never in the cards. They were always like, nope, we're just going to let Motorola be Motorola. We've also seen them not getting the benefit from the patents in court that they thought they were going to get. As you mentioned, not being able to get that big standard, that high standards essential rate that they were after. So Google may be looking at this saying, well, that was a good gamble. We paid for a bunch of patents that didn't work out. Now what do we do with Motorola? Maybe they need to polish it up, make it look good, put out a new line of products, and then sell it off. I've always assumed that that's what's going to happen with Motorola and Google anyways, that they would eventually divest themselves of it.
Or this could be a giant horrible plan by Google, showing Motorola to be so inept constantly that when Google shows up to make it more googly, the manufacturers, the competitors are like, oh, no, that's fine. It's Motorola. They suck. So we're not going to worry that they're making better products over time. This is my crazy conspiracy theory. Nate, what were you going to say?
I have a conspiracy theory too, and it's not just because I've been watching the X-Files constantly for the last 2 weeks. It's because I think there is another option here. We've known that Google in the past, which has a lot of money, as we all know, has put money behind auctions and things. We've seen this with the wireless auctions, wireless spectrum, in order to either keep it out of the hands of other companies, or to, in the case of the wireless spectrum, was to push the auction fee over a certain threshold that it needed to be. And I do wonder whether part of this was just about keeping Motorola and its patents out of the hands of somebody else that in the future could become a competitor or could have a significant competitive advantage over Google, over Android, and over the hardware division that, you know, that Google is increasingly investing in that wasn't there, you know, even a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. So I think that there could be an aspect of that involved in this as well.
That's a really good point. The defensive move, just taking these patents out of the hands of anybody else, not any other consortium getting it together. There was that deal where Amazon bought, I think it was Goodreads, and the plan was to keep it out of the hands of Apple. So Apple, I mean, Google's got enough money to do anything it wants, something like this. $12.5 billion, not so much money for that company.
Yeah, and likely something as big as buying Motorola had a lot of aspects to it, not just one. So we may all be right. There may be elements of all of these things that were true. Let's talk about GigaOm's Amanda Alvarez story today, a report on shape-shifting smartphones. It's actually talking about something happening at a conference called CHI 2013, CHI 13. Anne Raudat, a computer scientist at the University of Bristol in the UK, and some German colleagues are unveiling flexible touchscreen prototypes that they call Morphes. They use materials like wood, dielectric electroactive polymers, smart memory alloys, and combine them to create working bendable touchscreens. Now, we've heard about the possibility of this, but this is the biggest number of working versions of this that I have seen. There's a tiled touchscreen made of wood and smart memory alloy wires that can curve. You can curve it and it holds its shape. They show in their video an example of this where somebody's playing a video game on a smartphone, and then when they start the game, the sides curve around to make it easier to hold, make it feel more like a game controller, so that the shape can change based on the function. They said you could download an app that turns part of your phone into a stress ball that you can squeeze. They're talking about 2mm thick e-ink that can roll into a cylinder. This is probably the most functional looking of these bendable screen devices that we've been hearing about for a long time that I've seen. Nate, what do you make of this?
I think, yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of investment. Various companies have been doing this in checking out, investing in and researching bendable screens. I saw some flexible e-ink at CES earlier this year that was really quite amazing. But I mean, for me, I don't think that this necessarily has a place in cell phones. I mean, I could name many things I own that I wish would bend, and a phone is not one of them. You know,
you don't want to roll it up, stick it in your pocket?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm the kind of guy who buys, you know, trousers that have pockets big enough to put an iPad mini in. So I'm not necessarily sure I'm the right person to comment on, you know, bendable stuff to put in my trousers. But I think that in general, bendable technology is going to be a massive market in the future. I mean, even just looking at something like smartwatches, that's going to be a huge industry, I think, over the next 2-3 years. And I saw some bendable LCDs from, I think, Sharp also at CES earlier this year that they look amazing. You know, you just imagine wearing that on your wrist, and it's pretty fantastic. But I'm not sure if phones and stuff bending so you can just hold a phone better for gaming is necessarily the best use case for these.
Well, it could be a case or an accessory or something like that. Sure. But I kind of feel like this is the sort of thing where you make it and then you start playing with it to figure out what it's best at. I'm not sure what it would be best at, but I definitely want people to start playing around with this. Does anything come to mind for you? I
just think it's going to be like a new device class, like Nate's saying with cell phones. I don't know if it works directly with that. I don't know if you want a phone that you could roll up or do like an origami kind of style fold of it. But then again, you start thinking a little bit differently. You're not going to just have this standard 2D display. You can curve things like that OLED TV we were talking about. It's curved. It's going to take a lot of work to ship that. There's a lot of things you got to worry about that way. But if you can have these devices that just start changing shape at random, not random, but because you wanted to change, that'd be even more interesting, I guess. What did you buy? I don't know. It just changes on its own. I like this idea because it opens the door to things like, I guess this would be really good for smartwatches in general. But then again, I'm always concerned about batteries that aren't flexible, and I'm worried about battery life, because I don't want to rain on this parade, because I think this will be really cool in the future. I just wonder about when is a company going to think this is a good idea and they can make a marketable product with it? Because otherwise, it's just a cool piece of technology that nobody's going to have.
Yeah, but that's every technology in its prototype phase and its development phase. When somebody's like, I think I can make this do thing. You have to wait for somebody to figure out how to make it cheaply, how to make it in a way that the customers want, and you have to figure out how to make it so that it's functional with battery life. But that doesn't mean it won't happen.
Well, we've seen color e-ink displays for years. We've seen bendable e-ink displays for years, and that's still not out. So I'm just kind of curious about that. Or we've even seen like fiber rollout. It's brilliant. It's great, but if there's no money in it, nobody's doing anything.
We've seen Bluetooth for years. Nobody ever turned it. Oh, wait, no, it did get turned it. We've seen multi-touch for years. Oh, wait, somebody did figure out how to make it.
And so you're saying 15 years from now, we're going to have this. And it's going to be good.
Examples on both sides.
Gen 1 is going to suck, is what we're saying. Like the first generation of Bluetooth, and Gen 2, it's going to be great.
You know, I think it's a viral video of the future. You know, we've had this thing where people, you know, the guys get the latest technology and they put it in one of those food mixing devices. It opens the door for someone to say, I'm going to start a new video show called Will It Bend? Right. And that's just going to be the next big thing. But I think on a more serious note, the quantified self, the idea of things like the Nike Plus Fuel Band, stuff like that, that's a really huge growing market. And I think that bendable tech, that's the kind of area that we're going to see these sorts of technologies used.
That's definitely the obvious first place for it, for sure. I think you're right about that. Maybe will it blend and then reassemble itself because it's made of nanomaterials that could pull apart.
Yeah, maybe.
This stuff is going to make the next story seem like it's mundane, but Microsoft's projector that will fill the room with the video game you're in is getting real.
Yeah, I got the boring story. I picked this out for myself this morning. Microsoft released a video showing off a proof of concept called IllumiRoom. Now, it's a system that projects video around your television, and in the demo video, IllumiRoom could distort your reality, like make a room appear cartoonish with heavy black outlines, or could extend your video game playing to beyond the television because there's a giant projector there. A finished version would be something like a coffee table projector. And in this video, if you're watching this in the video version, there was a disclaimer in the beginning of the video that says, all clips in this video are captured live in real time without any post-production or compositing. So these are actual shots of this thing working because there's a prototype that's made with a commodity-wide field of view projector and a Kinect sensor. Now, the Kinect sensor is there so it can take a look at your surfaces, figure out where your TV is, project around it. It's all self-calibrating. It sounds pretty crazy so far. And the reason why this is in the news today, because this was shown off at CES, the research team behind IllumiRoom will reveal the project's technical background tomorrow. Nate, right now this is a proof of concept, but should Microsoft be rushing to get this out with the next Xbox? Because this looks pretty amazing to me.
No. That's the short answer. I think it looks amazing. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Microsoft has a bit of a addiction at the moment of making products that only really benefit people with massive houses. And, you know, I do like this. I think it's a great effect. There was a thing shown in the video where you're racing something like Mario Kart through a snowy scene, and the IllumiRoom is just making it look like it was snowing around the television screen. And I do like that. But Microsoft Research they make so many of these products. I've actually visited the research campus in Redmond, and they have so many projects going on, and they have these hardware labs that exist purely to build the crazy ideas that guys upstairs come up with, and this is one of them. They've done loads of these, and very few of them come to market. I think it is a really neat idea, but in terms of being like the next big thing for the Xbox, to be honest, I don't see it happening.
Tom, we've seen this kind of projector-style thing before. I think Bill Gates demoed something crazy like this back in CES 2002, like a kitchen projector where you can interact with the computer. This seems like it's much more closer to reality. I was just shocked that this was actually a prototype. The videos we're watching are a camera based on this. Do you think this is the next?
They're real? Do you really believe Microsoft when they say that it's no post-production?
Well, you know, here's the deal. Like, I wouldn't believe the Kinect is a thing. Okay, a couple years ago. I think that's crazy. You mean I can wave around with no controller? That's going to work, and it's going to be on this little box? Yeah, that's going to make sense. But this seems like this is, when it comes to video games, Microsoft seems to be incredibly serious. So this kind of thing could change things, because what other platform could do this?
I think this is real, and I think it is very impressive. I wonder, though, if this is one of those things that looks better as a demo than it works in real life, right? Because this is very impressive to look at. But after a while, are you going to get tired of having to shut off all the lights in the room to play your video game? Is it going to be more of it's already an inconvenience in the family room sometimes for families to be like, oh, I want to play a video game right now. Well, nobody else can do anything but watch you play the video game then. So I think this is going to be great for a certain segment of the audience. I don't think they should rush it. I think they should get it right, and I think it's going to be an accessory that differentiates probably the next generation, or as an add-on to the new Xbox that we'll find out about next month.
I was staring at my giant white wall behind my TV, and I'm like, you know what? I could probably have awesome widgets up there. Like I have a clock up there and picture frames. Why not just have the projector going all the time? I can have them up. I just think there's so many things I want to use this for because it's ridiculous. I never need to paint again.
Well, we'll find out more about it tomorrow, right?
Yeah, we'll find out how it's made tomorrow.
Yeah, and then we'll probably find out even more about it in May, maybe.
Hopefully.
When they announce the new Xbox. Let's move on to the randomizer. I think that all three of us, and probably Chad too, can get behind a new technology for beer drinking, right? Am I wrong?
Nope.
Anyone disagree with that?
I've been waiting for some sort of technology to rush into this market for years. That's why I've stopped drinking until some sort of technology comes around. Yeah.
Well, we're all going to have to make our way to Brazil to get Chad off the wagon because creative studio Bolha has created new pint glasses with a chip in the bottom that allows you to scan a barcode to link the cup to your Facebook account. And then when you clink glasses with someone else, you become Facebook friends with them.
So that you just saw footage of how it used to be done with dumb glasses, and now you get the smart glass.
The buddy cup.
Well, they're calling it the buddy cup.
Yeah.
It's happy. You're glad you have it.
People clinked their cups. They became
Nate,
friends.
would this prevent you from toasting people?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely it would. I'm a very antisocial person. I just prefer to talk to people I already know while I'm drinking beer. I don't really want to be bumping glasses with people. I'm not that interested. It's I don't know. It seems like a promo-y thing.
You'll be able to tell like the social, like I don't know, Avenger, like wanting to walk through the entire crowd to make sure to clink cups with
social
everyone.
Media gurus will always be proposing toasts.
What about the awkwardness? The thing is, Chad's style of beer, the one he drinks, I would never clink him because I don't want to be drinking Coors Light all night. It's like I'm gonna have something serious. Now you're gonna have these very awkward moments of like, hey, let's have a toast, and then I'm not clinking with you.
No.
Is it
Sorry.
imperial
I don't like
pints too? I mean, that's a very important question.
What was that?
As far as I'm concerned. Is it an imperial pint glass or is it one of those 12-ounce things?
I don't know.
It looks like an imperial pint. It looks pretty large.
And this could
At least they
actually
got that
get
right.
this could get NFC going. I know Tom hates the idea of tap to do anything.
The question is,
Straight-sided.
I don't know. Look at that. But that is I don't know. And then also, do you have to drink Budweiser when you use it? Does it have a sensor to tell?
It won't pair unless it detects
It
Budweiser.
goes, I'm sorry, but it looks like you're drinking some sort of local microbrew. I'm sorry, the function disabled.
Now,
Yeah, I
link
would
this
be
thing
far
into
more impressed if
Untapped
this was.
with craft
Sorry.
beers.
Yeah, if Untapped came out with this might be, not only am I checking in with the beer that I'm drinking, but I'm checking in with the people, and that might be a fun little gimmick.
Yeah, it could actually tell what beer you're drinking.
Right.
Let's take a quick break and thank our other sponsor for today's episode, Gazelle. We love Gazelle. If you want a new phone, maybe you want a Samsung Galaxy S4, maybe you want an iPhone 5, maybe you want an HTC One, you can get all of those with cash. How do you get cash? Sell your old gadgets. Before you upgrade, make sure you sell your used phone or gadget to Gazelle for cash. It's incredibly simple. That's why I use Gazelle, because I'm lazy, and it turns my laziness into money. Not many things can do that. Go to gazelle.com, Gazelle.com. Find your item. Tell Gazelle the condition. They'll even buy broken iPhones and iPads, all right? Get a risk-free offer for your gadgets. Gazelle locks that quote in for 30 days. So you can be even lazier than me. You can take 30 days to finally get the thing in the mail. They'll even send you a box to put it in, to give it in the mail. Once they get it, though, they're not lazy. They'll turn you around fast, get you paid by check, PayPal, or an Amazon gift card. You actually get a 5% bonus when you get paid by the Amazon gift card. So go to Gazelle.com, get an offer for your Samsung, your iPhone, your HTC, your BlackBerry smartphone. Find out what all that stuff's worth. Your iPhone, your Samsung, your Android smartphone. Find out what it's worth. Take a minute, go to Gazelle.com and find out. Sell your used Samsung Galaxy or iPhone today at Gazelle.com. That's Gazelle.com. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. What is on the calendar, Sarah?
Sarah, where is Sarah?
Oh, she still hasn't landed yet. What's on the calendar, IS?
I guess I'll do it. Linux 3.9 is released today by Linus Torvalds. Preposterous tomorrow. If you've used that blogging service, well, it's shutting down for good tomorrow to focus on Twitter. You can download all your old blog posts. Until then, the Sony Xperia Tablet Z is also now up for pre-order. It's scheduled to ship May 24th. And China Mobile reportedly is targeting August 2013 to launch China's first 4G network.
Someone said that I should get more enthusiastic when it's time for our incoming segment. So here we go. Incoming!
Incoming message.
Email from Fez in Montreal, who says, while I share the panel's disdain with more sponsored content on Twitter, local or not, I am very excited about seeing tweets near me. Google Plus does this, and while I'm not on there much, it's a great idea. With the growing lack of local newspapers and less knowledge of local goings-on, I find it very interesting to see tweets for people nearby to know more about what's happening around me, be it problems, crises, events, or celebrations. A local Twitter tab would be a thing I would check often. Nate, are you excited about local Twitter becoming an official Twitter function?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm just sad that I haven't got enough balloons ready to blow up. I'm fresh out of the cake.
We'll give you more advance notice next time so you can gather your balloons.
We got an email from Brady, who's a user experience engineer at IBM. He says, hey, TNT crew, I know I'm a couple of days behind, but I just thought I'd offer a quick thought about driver distraction. Y'all mentioned the studies that reflect texting, voice interaction with your phone while driving aren't good ideas. However, the academic literature has always shown much more broad trends than that. The research literature clearly states that any activity that is not driving reduces driver performance. The technology isn't important. It's the separation of the mental and cognitive attention of the primary interaction and the secondary interaction. This is also true in any cognitively intense activity, like video games. From my own human performance-related testing in user experience engineering, we see about a 75% decrease in primary task performance. Of course, there are plenty of caveats to that number, but in all cases, performance is drastically decreased, starting at 30% in the best examples I have studied thus far. Virginia Tech and other institutions have tested driver distractions for years now, and it's clear that when you're driving, you should be paying as much attention as humanly possible to driving. We adapt well as human beings to these secondary tasks, but without a great deal of experience, distractions while driving increase accidents and fatalities dramatically.
I could not agree more. Thank you, Brady. Now, smart people even agree with what I said, which is when you're driving, pay attention to driving. That is it for this episode of Tech News Today. Nate Langston, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. I resisted temptation to wear the bright green Buzz Out Loud t-shirt that I found.
I saw that. I almost went and grabbed mine.
This time. It was about 8 years ago or something, but I actually found it.
Look at that.
Isn't that great?
Not even moth.
But yeah, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to be here.
Always good to have you, man. And wired.co.uk, obviously the place to find the effects of your stewardship. But you guys have a podcast. Anything else you want to promote?
Yeah, the podcast, yeah. I haven't been on it for the last couple of weeks. I've actually been off sick. But as of this Friday, I will be back on it. So if you do a search for Wired UK in iTunes or Downcast or whatever you use, we do that once a week from London. And the other thing I thought I would just point out, I don't normally mention stories, but we talked about beer today. We've actually just got this story on the site about the microbrewery culture going on in North Korea, which I'm just absolutely fascinated by. Apparently North Korea's got this amazing culture of microbreweries and beers and things like that. And we just published the piece this afternoon that Ian Stedman, one of our staff writers, wrote. And if you're interested in beer and or North Korea, you should give it a check out. It's pretty amazing.
I definitely appreciated the headline Kim Jong Ale, by the way.
Yeah, that's the problem. When I edit a website, you tend to find a lot of puns, although I take no credit for that. That was all Ian.
Can't miss it. Find it at wired.co.uk. Thanks again, Nate. Also, thanks to all of the folks who submit stories in our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. Go join them and have your voice heard in what we cover each and every day on the show. You can submit stories, vote on other people's stories, discuss the stories. It's all there at our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. You can also find us on the web anytime, night or day, twit.tv/TNT. Email us, TNT@twit.tv, or give us a call and leave us a voicemail. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. Stephen Shanklin from CNET joins us tomorrow. We'll see you then.